Woo! Welcome back, guys, to I Am Not a Weather Girl. Honestly, guys, thank you so much for joining me the last 4 months of doing this podcast. It means so much to me. But one thing that happened, and one thing I've been hearing a lot is, when are you going to do a solo episode? When are you going to tell your story? And while I've been doing these interviews, some of my guests have said, "Oh, I didn't know that about you." Or, "Oh, really? That happened to you?" Or, "You had the same exact experience." And it got me to thinking, well, maybe some people would care to hear about my own story. So I thought today I would switch it up and do a solo episode and talk about my experience in news and where I grew up and all of that, and answer some of the questions that I ask usually during a podcast episode. So here we go. So yeah, let's do it. Before we get into that though, if you are enjoying this podcast, please, please, please hit the little subscribe button, hit the follow button, leave a review. Those are just some of the ways that I'll be able to continue to grow this podcast, which I'm loving so much. And if you're loving it too, if it is helpful for you, find me on Instagram, follow me, talk to me, tell me you're loving it. I want to know. So leave a review. It would mean a lot. Thank you. But let's get on with it. Let's talk about my journey. Oh my gosh. Do people even care? I don't know. We will find out after I post this and find out how many downloads and views I get. But hey, let's start from the beginning, shall we? Where did you grow up? How did you get your start? Well, I was born in upstate New York, but I grew up in a suburb outside Detroit. So when I was very little, we moved to Michigan. And I had a very normal, middle-class childhood. I had a great childhood. I grew up as an only child, and I talked about this in a previous podcast, that I have 2 half-sisters that live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they're wonderful, but I didn't grow up with them. They're 15 to 20 years older than me. So I grew up as an only child. And because I was an only child, I grew up very, very independent. My mom worked in news. I've talked about this previously as well. She worked at the ABC affiliate in Detroit called WXYZ for 14 years, so pretty much my entire childhood. And then she went over to Clear Channel and worked for the major radio stations for another 5 years until I graduated high school. I thought my mom was so cool because she worked in news. So cool. Even though my mom wasn't on air, she was a business manager in the newsroom. She had so many friends at the station, so I felt like I was part of it. I knew all the talent. I knew all the crew. I felt so cool that my mom worked there. And my mom would plan all the field trips. So we would go to the station, and I would go with my mom to work a lot. I remember vividly coloring on news scripts in the newsroom. I remember watching The Lion King in the control room. I remember the director letting me press magic buttons in the control room during one of the shows. I remember sitting in the lunch break room watching Tara Lipinski perform during the Olympics, figure skating. I also remember my mom set up the helicopter pilot. Shout out to Dennis Neubacher. He was the helicopter pilot at WXYZ, and he flew the helicopter to my elementary school and landed at my elementary school. And when he got out, the first thing he said was, "Stephanie, you forgot your lunch." And so I walked up there. Of course, there was no lunchbox. At first I was like, oh, did my mom really pack my lunch to give to the helicopter pilot to give to me? No, but there's just so many memories I have of being at that station. I remember bringing my classroom on a field trip to the station that my mom had set up. And I remember one of the girls getting locked in the bathroom during lunch. Like all of these funny moments. But it's funny. People ask me all the time, "Oh, your mom worked in news, so you probably wanted to go into news as well, just being around it." Well, the short answer is no. I loved to perform, and I did a bunch of commercial spots for WXYZ. I was a cartoon character during one Saturday morning, so I would say, "You're watching WXYZ7 Detroit, and I'd be a character that would pop up on the screen before the morning cartoons. I loved that. I also was in a couple of Christmas commercials. And then when my mom worked in radio, I did some radio spots, and I actually had some friends that would, I don't know if it was text at the time, but they would say, oh, were you on the radio yesterday? I heard your voice. And I was like, oh yeah. So I love to perform. I love to doing all of those kinds of things. So if you asked me when I was younger what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was actor or it was English teacher as a backup plan, which is so funny because if you combine acting, because there is that performance nature of journalism with obviously English writing, it makes so much sense that I did become a journalist. Were there points when I was a kid that I said I wanted to be a weather anchor or a news anchor? Yeah, of course, because my mom worked there and I saw it firsthand. But overall, I wanted to be an actor. But I was also a really creative kid. I loved poetry and writing papers, and I always won the creative writing contests at school, and I won poetry contests at school. I won drawing contests at school. I remember there was a stamp contest, and whoever had the best stamp in the grade had their picture made into a stamp, and I won that. I just was a very creative child. I remember also forcing my teachers to let me direct plays for the entire grade. So I directed plays in 4th grade. I directed plays in 5th grade. And I remember setting those up during recess. The teachers would even allow me to set up times during the class that I would gather the students and direct all these plays. So I definitely had that performing aspect from a very young age. In addition to that, I was a piano player. I also was in dance. I went to my dance studio. I also was on the dance team all throughout high school. I went to a theater high school. So half of my day was at a theater high school, and the rest of my day was at a different high school for academics. So always wanted to perform. And when I was in middle school, I did the middle school news, and I was in yearbook club after school. So again, it makes so much sense that I went into a field like this, even though I did not study journalism in college, which we will get there. So what was my career journey like? Well, I went to the University of Arizona. That's where I met my then boyfriend, now husband, and we both got degrees in media arts, with an emphasis in film and television producing, with a minor in theater. Not so far off the journalism degree, but I thought I wanted to be an actor and filmmaker, so that's why I got my degree in filmmaking. After my junior year, I did my first internship in Los Angeles. My now husband, but boyfriend at the time, Jason, he graduated that year. So we both moved out to Santa Monica, California, got a little 1-bedroom apartment right by the ocean, 3 blocks from the ocean. And it was amazing. I had an internship with a producer named Lawrence Mark. He's produced Julie and Julia, The Greatest Showman, Jerry Maguire, Dreamgirls, and this was on the Sony Pictures lot. So it was so cool to have my internship on a lot, on a movie studio lot. I have so many fond experiences of that 4-month internship. I remember they were shooting Moneyball with Jonah Hill. And I remember Lawrence Mark, the producer, he allowed me to take his $100,000 Mercedes to get the tires fixed. Yeah, those were some of my internship duties, if you will. And I remember walking out to the car, and Jonah Hill was out there, and he tells the parking attendant, "Wow, that's better than I can do." Obviously looking at my car. And it was just such a funny experience because I thought, if only Jonah Hill knew the car I actually had, which was a 2003 Chevy Cavalier, I believe. It was just a really, really cool internship. I did a lot of reading scripts, giving notes on scripts, writing script breakdowns, and all of that. So after my internship, I finished my last year at the University of Arizona. And after I graduated, we moved back out to Los Angeles. Well, my husband was already out there, living there. And I moved back into the Santa Monica apartment. And we worked on some feature films together behind the camera. I was a production assistant on a feature film. And then I got my first full-time job at a post-production company called Lotus Post. And they did a bunch of voiceover work and post-production for movies and feature films. And I did that for a year and a half. So many celebrities came in, from Ashton Kutcher, who, by the way, got chased by the paparazzi to my office. And the paparazzi were just standing outside taking so many photos of Ashton. And I remember him being so irritated. But I met so many other people too, like Cameron Diaz and Nick Carter and Robert Redford. The list literally goes on. Mila Kunis, like everyone came in to do their post-production ADR, which is the voiceover sound after the movie is made. While I was there, I was a post-production coordinator on a few movies. If you check out IMDb, I was a post-production coordinator on Jobs, which was Ashton Kutcher, Steve Jobs movie, if you remember that. Also Hit and Run, which starred and maybe it was directed by Dax Shepard. I did some voiceover work for some movies that were being done. So I do have my voice in a bunch of feature films. When they would need somebody, I would pop into the booth and do some voiceover work for some games and TV shows and video games, all of that. It was a cool job, but it was also a lot of just making coffee for people and that assistant type work. I knew there was more for me. So how did I get started in journalism? Well, after that year and a half, I was fed up because really I was just an assistant. I wasn't growing. And I thought, what is next? How can I be creative? So I moved back to Tucson, Arizona, where my parents lived, with my boyfriend, now husband, just to have a reset and figure out what is next. And a job popped up at the ABC affiliate in Tucson called KGA 9. And it was a part-time TV personality / digital producer job. And I thought, well, that's a lot of what I do. I do a lot of on-air work in Los Angeles. I worked in Los Angeles doing post-production work. I think I could do this. So I applied, immediately heard back, got the job, and that was my first job in local news. Now, I should add, it was part-time. Part-time, meaning I was making $17,400 a year. I still remember. So I needed another job. So I got a job at Crate and Barrel. So I was on the news and working at Crate and Barrel at the same time. Sometimes people come into Crate and Barrel and ask if I worked on the news. And I would say, yep. But you know what? I had to pay my bills. It was the only way. So that's how I did it. And I worked at that news station for 4.5 years. 4.5 years part-time. Yes, I never got full-time. So I started hosting a segment on our Morning Blend lifestyle show, a weekly segment called Sizzling Hollywood. And I also, as an on-air personality, was doing these everyday little teases during the day. I would pop up on the CW Tucson saying, the Vampire Diaries are coming up tonight. Here's what you can expect, basically. So I did a bunch of that. I did the entertainment show. Then I started doing a radio show called The Hollywood Get Down. So I was doing a bunch of entertainment journalism. And then I started doing more digital reporting, and some of my stories would go on the newscasts. There was a big digital initiative push. So I would do stories and packages that would go on the web, and a portion of it would go on the newscast, usually during the D block, maybe the B block if I was lucky. And then I started filling in weather. All of that is to say that I moved around a lot in that station. I learned everything and anything. But you have to be an advocate of yourself. I applied for MMJ jobs while I was there, and I did not get them. The news director, in fact, said, maybe you should try teaching. Well, I don't want to teach. I want to report. So I just kept busting my butt, learning as much as I could, learning the weather desk, and I started to fall in love with weather. And that's when I decided to go back to school and get certified in meteorology. And a couple months later, a weather anchoring position popped up across the street at the NBC affiliate. And I got that job. I thought, what the heck? I'm trained to fill in on weather here at the ABC affiliate. May as well shoot my shot. And the same day or next day, the news director contacted me and I got hired a week later. And so I think the biggest piece of advice I can give you all is be your own advocate and learn everything possible that you want to learn to get to where you want to go. So if you want to anchor and you're a reporter, try as hard as possible to either shadow the anchors or get some fake reel footage of you anchoring, or get the news directors to agree to have you fill in on the anchor desk when it's a holiday, when anchor calls out sick, whatever you have to do. Try to get those opportunities, because that is what's going to propel you toward your next job. For me, it was learning and training the weather, which got me to fill in weather, which got me to becoming a weather anchor at my next station. So what was my next station like? Well, that was at the NBC affiliate in Tucson, Arizona, where I was at for a 2-year contract. And there I was the weekend weather anchor, and I did general assignment reporting during the week. And that position was a very standard position. Everything you know about reporting and weather anchoring, that was that job. But about a year into it, the morning meteorologist all of a sudden packed his bags and left. And I became the temporary morning meteorologist. And I did that for 6 full months. And I thought I might end up doing that position full time until I wasn't given that position and I went back to my original schedule. And that's when the panic attacks started happening. And I talked about those panic attacks in a separate podcast with the celebrity psychologist, but I don't know what prompted the panic attacks, but it may have been the fact that I wasn't given that promotion. Even though in my heart, I knew that I wanted to move on and I wanted to get back out to Los Angeles. I did know that in my heart, but not being offered that position did something to the wiring in my brain that made me think, maybe I'm not good enough to do this if I wasn't offered it. And so I remember that day very clearly. I remember getting on set and getting so winded and so out of breath to the point where the anchor asked, "Are you okay?" And I couldn't hardly do a first weather hit, which is only a minute long. I was getting so winded. And by the end of the newscast, I was driving home and the news director called me and asked me if I was okay. And I was like, I don't know. I just don't feel well. I need to go home. And I was shaking. I was visibly shaking. And it's funny because when I posted about this last month, viewers said, "You didn't have panic attacks while you were there." I was really good at hiding them, guys. We have a weather remote, and you can click if you want to get to the 7-day forecast, which is usually the last graphic of your hit. So if I got really winded, I would just hit that button and get over to the 7-day forecast so that I didn't need to talk much longer because I knew I was getting so out of breath. So no, was it like super visible? And should I not call it panic attacks? Should I call it anxiety attacks? I don't know. I knew I was getting really winded and really anxious every time I would step onto the green screen. And I even had interviews shortly thereafter because I only had 4 months left in my contract. I had an interview in Phoenix, Arizona at the ABC station, and I thought I would get that job. I had a 9-hour interview. If I really wanted that job, I would have had it. But I was so anxious and in my head, and I knew I needed to take a break. The difference is people that take a break because it's their decision versus me. I never thought I would take a break from anchoring the weather. I thought I would go to the next big station and I thought I would go to network. I had an agent. And so it wasn't really my decision, like somebody leaving news to go into PR. It was more like an athlete who gets an injury. It didn't feel like my decision stepping away from on-air news. And I personally felt like a failure. I really did. And I went to the doctor, and once again, I went to the doctor and I hoped that they found something wrong with me so that they could diagnose it, but they couldn't diagnose it because there wasn't anything wrong with me. I was just dealing with anxiety. And when I put a label on it that it was anxiety, it made it so much worse because now every time I stepped onto the green screen, onto the camera, I would start thinking, oh my gosh, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When am I going to run out of breath? And so I knew I needed to step away. And the only people I told this to were my mom and my husband. Those were the only 2 people that knew about this for a really long time. It took a few years before I even started opening up to a few friends about panic attacks. Because frankly, think of it this way. You have panic attacks, you leave your station, and you think, well, if I talk about this openly, what news director is going to want to hire someone that gets panic attacks on air? I mean, naturally that makes sense, right? That a news director would be hesitant to hire me. So I didn't talk about it for a long time. Obviously, I've freelance reported for Fox Los Angeles and proved to myself that I can do this. I am able to do this, and I'm very good at this. But that was a very dark time for me because when I left my contract and took that break, I had no job lined up. I left my agent, and the COVID-19 pandemic started. All the jobs I potentially had lined up went away. So I was unemployed for 6 full months, and that was a dark 6 full months. I felt so alone, and I felt that my identity was completely stripped. I placed so much of my worth on my identity. So when I didn't have that, no longer getting recognized in public, And I know that sounds vain, but I was very proud of my job. And I no longer had that. And while I knew I had to step away, it was devastating. And I still miss it. But my life is so good right now, too. And we'll get to that. But where I went next was Los Angeles, California. I got a job as a digital content creator for Fox TV stations 5 years ago. I just celebrated my 5-year work anniversary. And it was somewhat of a hybrid role. I was a national digital reporter, so I could still stay in news while not being on camera full time because I knew I needed to step away from that for a bit. But I was also part of the time hosting a national streaming channel called Live Now from Fox. And if you're not up on Live Now from Fox, get on Live Now from Fox. It is an amazing channel. A lot of the coverage is live, raw, and unfiltered. So you can watch press conferences, you can watch rallies, you can watch speeches, expert interviews, everything in real time with not a ton of commentary. So I was hosting that. And it allowed me to host a live streaming channel and still be on air and also do interviews for my digital reporting team. And it's been an amazing position. I've been able to do more on-air work. I do entertainment interviews. I freelance report for Fox Los Angeles. I've gotten to do so many things. I'm so grateful for my job. I really am. So again, so you understand a little bit better, what do I do at my current job? So I am a national digital reporter. Essentially, I create and write national content for all the owned and operated TV stations. Fox New York, Fox Los Angeles, Fox Chicago, you name it. I write national stories for those outlets. So all that's to say, what is my advice for reporters in this industry? I'll give you a few tips. One, get your MOS, which is man on the street for those of you not in the industry. That's when you go get interviews from people out in public. Go get MOS at a pet store. Did you hear me? Get your MOS at a pet store. Why? Well, one, people at pet stores generally aren't in a hurry. Two, pet people are generally pretty friendly. So 3, I've had a lot of success at pet stores. Get your MOS at pet stores. That's my first piece of advice. Number 2, I would also say when you're out in public doing these MOS shots, I would say, I work for channel blank versus the network that you're with. For example, I work for Channel 5 versus I work for ABC. The public can have very strong opinions of what you say. If you say ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, whatever, it's much easier to say I work for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They don't think as much of that. That's my second piece of advice. My next piece of advice is for journalists that want to become anchors or meteorologists. I say get your foot in the door and maneuver. Start and then refine. So if you want to be an entertainment reporter, you need to go to an entertainment organization. I don't care if you have to be an intern and you're making literally $0. You need to get your foot in the door. Once you're in the door, then you can maneuver, become a producer. And I've talked to people on this podcast that said producers generally can end up having their questions on air, going to red carpets, and then you can still work your way up. I have talked with managers on the phone at entertainment organizations that have told me that won't work out, but I think that's bullshit. And I think that was bad advice. If you want to be a meteorologist, get a job as a reporter at a station and try to fill in like I did. If you want to be an anchor, try to fill in on the anchor desk. Or get a job in a very, very tiny market being a meteorologist or an anchor. It's probably possible these days to get those jobs right out of college. In small markets, of course, but if that's what you ultimately want to do, get in the door and then refine. If you're already at a station and you're a reporter and you know you want to maneuver into another realm, start doing it. Ask the reporters or the meteorologists or the anchors, can I shadow you? Some will say no, but others will say yes. Look for those opportunities. Go out with the reporters. If that's ultimately what you want to do, go out with the reporters and shadow them, get some fake footage, make it happen. Be your own advocate, like I've said earlier. So I always say, get your foot in the door, learn everything possible, and maneuver your way to the position that you want. Okay, I hope that was helpful, guys. I hope that was helpful in learning a little bit more about me and my journey. But I do have the quick fires. I may as well do the quick fires, right? If I weren't a journalist, I would be an actor. But if I wasn't an actor, I would be in fashion. I would be like the Emily in Devil Wears Prada. I would probably be a stylist like Rachel Zoe or in fashion PR. I love fashion. I don't think I would be a fashion designer, but I would work in fashion in some capacity. My coffee order. Okay, this is not an easy answer because my husband and I are true coffee snobs. I know people say coffee snob, but we have an espresso machine that's over $1,000. So we are legit coffee snobs. So we make a lot of coffee at home. We make at least 2 lattes per day at home with our machine. And at home, we have a latte with 2% milk, standard. When I'm out and about, I'll probably have a vanilla latte with whole milk, iced or hot, depending on what I'm feeling like that day. But if we're at Starbucks, if we're having a little Starbies, it's the shaken espresso with that cold foam on top. A shaken espresso with salted caramel cold foam on top. Oh, so good. Your favorite travel destination? I would say my favorite travel destination is Palm Springs. It is my happy place. It is warm. It is relaxing. It has the mid-century modern architecture. It's where my husband and I got married. It's chef's kiss. I love Palm Springs. If it's not Palm Springs, I would say Paris, France. It's where my husband and I got engaged. I'm a bit of a Francophile. I took French lessons for 3 years. C'est parfait. I love Paris. And I love the food. They have the best food. Oh. Something people often get wrong about you. So some people think that I work for Fox News. We partner with Fox News. I will share Fox News stories, but I don't write for Fox News. I write for all of the owned and operated stations. Some people also think I work for Fox Los Angeles. No, I freelance report for Fox Los Angeles, but I don't actively work for Fox Los Angeles, even though my office space is technically at Fox Los Angeles. And some people think I work for Fox Entertainment because I do all of these Fox Entertainment interviews. I work for Fox Local, which is the head of Fox New York, Fox Los Angeles, Fox Chicago, and I do national reporting and national digital pieces for all of the owned and operated stations. The last movie, TV show, or book you watched and loved? Ooh, this is the easy answer. 24 in 24, Last Chef Standing. Oh, it's so good. And also rest in peace, Anne Burrell. Oh, devastating. But Last Chef Standing is a bunch of chefs competing for 24 hours straight. Oh, I was so hoping they would bring back a season 2, and they brought back season 2 Go back, watch season 1 and season 2. It is so, so, so good. You can find it on Hulu, Food Network. Oh, I am a huge reality television fan. I love any and all reality television shows, from home shows to food shows to Real Housewives to everything in between. By the way, so excited that Rachel Zoe is joining the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills next season. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good. Also love all of the Real Housewives of New York's, the OGs, and also the new cast. Love them all. All right. A snapshot of an ordinary everyday moment that gives you true joy. Oh, pizza Fridays with my husband and daughter. Every Friday, we order pizza and we watch a Disney movie together on the couch. We eat right on the couch, and there's nothing better. Nothing better. I grew up in the era of TGIF, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Boy Meets World. All of these great shows would come on Friday nights, and I always looked forward to watching these shows on Fridays. So it's kind of an homage to TGIF, watching with my family some good TV shows and pizza. I love it. If you could switch lives with one person for a day, who would it be? Ooh, the easiest answer of all. The Olsen twins. Yes, that's who I would switch lives with, specifically Mary-Kate Olsen. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I would want to switch lives with them. One, obsessed with them. I grew up as a 90s child watching Full House, watching everything Mary-Kate and Ashley. I was part of their fan club. I had all their books. I was truly obsessed. Two, we share the same birthday. Yes, June 13th is my birthday. It is also the Olsen twins' birthday. Again, I'm just obsessed. The next reason why I would want to interview them is because they're so mysterious. You don't know much about them at all. Once they left acting life, there's very, very few interviews, very, very little information about them. I want a sneak peek into what they actually do because there's very little out there. I love their line, The Row, that I cannot afford. Their designer line. It's beautiful. And also, if I was switching lives with them, I would make sure to do an interview in that 24 hours because they rarely ever do them. And I would go back in time. I know that's not part of the experiment, but I would go back in time to when Fuller House was airing, and I would do a cameo in Fuller House because why they didn't do it? Come on. Give the fans what they want. So that's all the reasons why I would switch lives with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, but Mary-Kate specifically. One thing you're deeply grateful for right now, my health and my family's health. I just recognize in my life how important that is. There's nothing more important than just the health of your family, really. If you could go back in time to when you first started your career, what piece of advice would you give yourself? You will end up working your butt off. You will work so hard to where you want to get in life. And you will fight for all of the positions that you want and you get. But not all opportunities will work out. Because one, this industry is very subjective. And two, life sometimes just is not fair. If you're tenacious like I am and such a go-getter, that can be hard to hear. But it will be okay. And things may not be perfect, but they can still be beautiful. Life can still be beautiful. And the opportunities that you end up getting can be wonderful. It may not be exactly the way you pictured it. The journey may not be exactly how you envisioned it going, but that's okay. Things can turn out differently and still be great. That's what I would tell myself. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope that helped. I hope that you got a glimpse, at least a little glimpse into my life. And thank you so much for listening. gosh, it means the world to me. And you have no idea when I see those downloads pop up, when I see the views pop up, it means so much to me. The support is insane. And the comments I receive are everything to me. So thank you so, so, so much. And please, if you have a chance, please go ahead and subscribe and follow and leave a review. I'd really appreciate it. Bye. Bye. Bye.